Berserk! Just a fair warning for those of you who are following along with the read-along, next week is the first week since we started that we are going to be taking a break from Berserk videos, purely because I'm not going to be making any videos. I'll be working on other projects / on vacation. So for that reason, this will be your last Berserk in tree till I get back the week after next. But let's go ahead and jump back in to the Holy Iron Chain Knights, Part 1. Where we last left off, Guts was leaving his encounter with the Fae folk, I think Buggy Fae? Buffet. Phoebe Buffet folk. And to say he wasn't in the best of shape would be a bit of an understatement, though it seems these Holy Iron Chain Knights are hot on his tail. We see them call out that he must surrender, and everyone seems to be rather non-professional, and this is established with just a lot of comments coming from the Knights not allowing their commander to have like the full weight of the moment and communicate with Guts, but we have tons of comments like, look at his hand, oh my god, he's soaked in blood. Is that the children's blood? And like, it's not the children's blood. That's where I'll leave that, no further comment. But they're asking him to lay down his arms so he can be arrested. And he even gets directly asked by their commander, the children of that village, the mounds of corpses left in the path you've tread, is that not their blood? And Guts is just like... And Puck's like, Guts? I don't know, the comedy of this section absolutely hit for me because it's dark, but it's funny.
I swear it's justified.
But with the lack of response from Guts, an order to arrest him is given, and we see a bunch of people charge him and start swinging their swords, so not exactly going for an arrest. Swords tend to be lethal when you swing them at someone's head. Guts is struggling though, and severely wounded. That being said though, these seem to be some really inexperienced fighters, and he's still able to not only survive, but get some kills with a single strike. We see one high-ranking member of this group kind of remark, hey, these are not exactly the most trained people. A lot of the people in our revenue are just like nobles' kids who needed to get some service under their belt. They're not warriors. And after Guts does successfully manage to kill 5 men in one swing, they are starting to comment that he is a monster. The confidence of the army trying to arrest the single man is wavering. So we see their champion, someone who is clearly just under the commander, come forward and say, enough, I will handle this, and it's your typical giant special dude in Berserk, which we even have Puck doing his continual mildly fourth wall breaking humor and commenting like, another one of these giant dudes in fancy armor. Guts realizes though he is in trouble because him being, I would say, at like 10% HP, he isn't in the condition to take on a boss. Reminds me of in Dark Souls when like you enter a room and suddenly it's like, boss fight! And you're like, I don't have any potions. Trying to find a way out, Guts goes for their commander, leaping away from the fight and trying to go for, as he puts it, the head. Though his body seems to fully give out in this charge, and after she lands a very mild wound on his shoulder, Guts finally collapses. This makes the commander look like she got the Black Swordsman down though, so she starts getting credit. But we see the untrained nobles' children knights start attacking Guts even though he is no longer able to fight and has surrendered, and the commander, who was the champion, comes forward and says, how dishonorable of you. He's given up. He's no longer fighting. Stop. They say like, but he killed some of our men. But the commander's like, that doesn't matter. You swung at him first. This is combat and we are arresting him, which I like a lot of the smaller character building that's been done here. Not only have we set up that this is not a capable group of knights, obviously, but there is a second in command who is capable, who's actually a champion, and respects the leader that they have even above him, despite the fact that it's also made very clear that this leader isn't the most competent. All of that with this religious undertone to feel like so many institutions throughout history, if you look into it, that yes, are essentially like nobles' kids or super religious people trying to play it military and not exactly knowing what they're doing. That's a very real world comparison, and it's established and set up in an action scene where Guts gets arrested. Efficient. We see the commander though is a bit bothered by the fact that they've drawn blood on their sword, and their second in command says, Lady Farnese, is this the first time you've drawn blood? One must not fear once one takes up the sword, but being a leader of men means forever bearing in mind a leader's dignity. The dialogue in Berserk can really hit sometimes. I also find it clunky at times, but every now and then there's like a level of characterization, observation that really hits well, and that's one of them for me. After this coaxing from their second, the commander gives the order to withdraw, with Guts now captive, and we cut to him being in some form of like lock-up medieval thing, you know, the board with the cutouts. I don't know, is that a stock? Stocks? Get him in the stocks? I want to call it a stocks. I think that's wrong, though. What is this thing called? His other hand is free because he didn't have that hand, so he got his stump out. And I actually thought that was how he was going to break free. He's just going to beat people with his stump. That doesn't happen. I was looking forward to it, though. That would have been great. But he is brought forth to Lady Frenesi, and some weird questioning begins, where we also get some more kind of nuances of this group defined, where she orders men to leave. They kind of resist at first, saying like, bah, and she's like, do I need to get the second? No, I'm in charge. Listen to me, leave me with him. And they do. She brings out a whip, or like the what's this? The pain flogger, as opposed to the pleasure flogger. She starts questioning Guts, and with the context we know alongside Guts, what she's asking him is genuinely funny. It's funny to see someone who's lived such a sheltered life, who clearly does not understand what's going on in the world, look at Guts and be like, so you are anti-God. You are someone who is so horrible. You're a pagan, a blasphemer. And Guts like, I've actually fought demons, but he's not going to say that, so he's just like laughing at this person's ignorance as they try and like tear him down with their hollow ideology. They even hold up the Behelit and refer to it as some kind of like pagan heresy, and it's like, no, that's, I mean, oh my god. But Guts crosses the line with the zealot when he finally says like, I've heard people use your same words to justify awful things like burning people at the stakes. You've never fought demons. You've never seen a god. I have no reason to speak with you whatsoever. You're just crazy. Adding insult to injury, he ends his little rant with, just go and say a chant for me in some musty temple, which causes her to snap and start whipping him. And of course, Guts has absolutely no reaction to that. His level of pain tolerance is above a flogger. And my favorite part is adding, again, really good humor to this. Puck is like, I'm gonna have to heal that. And she's like, in your wounded condition, I was going to show you mercy in this questioning, but no more. Guts' response to this is, from where I stand, you're the same as that idol you worship, completely hollow. This causes her to just go ham with the flogger, screaming at him as she whips him again and again and again, which, again, Guts has no response to. And there's definitely, for me at least, something more happening underneath the text as well, where Guts used to be someone who was not of many words, but would still often bother to argue back in situations like this. But here he's just not engaging, and I don't blame him, and I think it's actually the right choice. If you're in front of a zealot like this, who is just clearly blind to the actual world around them, they're not going to listen to anything you have to say. The only option forward that would make them happy is to bow down to their ideology and like try to repent, giving their ego a boost, which is what people in religious zealot situations are really looking for, in my opinion. Nothing can be accomplished, so Guts is just giving her nothing, and obviously he's giving her nothing with his words. He's not bothering to explain what he's been through, because it's not her right to know. She has no actual authority over him, and he's giving her nothing, kind of representing that by not showing any pain. One, because what I think he's feeling is not nearly as painful as many other things he's been through, but he doesn't want to give her that. He knows it will just feed into her power dynamic. But the second in command interrupts, basically saying, what's going on? This is wrong. And she responds, what's the trouble? I'm simply inquiring 2 or 3 things prior to delivering him to the Holy See. She ends it though, saying, enough, return him to his cell. You are all dismissed. And she kicks everybody out, including the second. We get that same officer, I believe, from before, who made the observations about most of the knights being just nobles' kids who aren't actually talented or disciplined at all, also saying to Guts, please don't antagonize the commander. However she may seem, she can be quite charming. And Guts just kind of laughs at that. We see the commander, though, bends down and starts fervently praying. They are, I want to say, like the Carrie Mother type character, you know what I mean? Someone who's just so folded into their own ideology, their own zealotry, like that's just everything is about God and nothing isn't. And yeah, you can't argue with those people. As the sun is beginning to set, though, Guts realizes this ain't good, and we get this really powerful imagery of, I think it's a dove crucified on a stick with the Behelit snaking underneath it. I don't know what that is, but symbolism. Just as the Dark Souls begin to come, Puck, of course, emerges and says, all right, I'll get you out. out and he brings a key, but he makes Gus say please and thank you, Puck, and all this, and Gus is like, I'll punish you later, and we're getting like a real relationship dynamic between the two. I really like it. I like Puck. I like Guts and Puck together. We even have Puck trying to go forward and fight some of the spirits as Guts escapes, but then they like roared him and he's like, never mind. Quickly though, Guts starts running to where he knows his equipment is being held in the leader's tent. He crawls under some flaps and sees her topless flogging herself and praying to God to guide her. That's a sign of stability there. That's a stable person.
All right, we're just gonna sneak in here, then I'll get my equipment. I'm going back into the cage.
Guts makes himself known though, and in a scene that again kind of got me to laugh, she's like, you! And he goes, judo chop! And she's knocked unconscious.
Judo chop!
Guts can judo chop! Gearing up and taking her prisoner though, Guts then emerges from the tent after setting a fire, which, love that detail, and he holds a torch saying he'll light the commander on fire who's got slug over his shoulder if people don't let him go, and the second in command is like, well played, we're gonna let you go. But then to make sure they can't pursue him, Guts takes the fire and starts lighting the horses' tails on fire, being like, sorry, you're not following me, before taking one last horse and riding off. And Puck is furious with him, saying that he needs to apologize for doing this to the horses. Puck, he murdered children, or attempted to, he's done, this is not the line. What? I mean, yes, also, horses are great, apologize to the horse. I agree with you. I'm just surprised Puck has that big an issue with it. We see that officer who made the observations and also made the comment about the commander not being that bad, does manage to get a horse and ride out after Guts faster than anyone else. But a couple interesting things happen in Guts's flight from this camp. One, yes, souls start arriving, and that officer who's coming after them has to deal with them a little bit, and he's like, what the hell was that? But also as Guts is riding away with the commander, Fairnessi, for whatever her name is, Puck tries to interact with her, but she doesn't see Puck. And this kind of like completes the metaphor of her way of thinking, her ideology blinding her. And this is probably the most overt kind of metaphor we've gotten from Mira that I really like, because it's something you encounter in the day-to-day world. It's someone who is so locked into their way of thinking, she literally cannot see the magical being in front of her that would counteract some of her beliefs. So she just does not see Puck. And Puck says, like, this is a kind of common thing from people like her. It's the point where Puck pulls on her lip and she yells at Guts for it. It gets impossible for her to ignore though when the dark spirits actually begin to attack Guts. And she says it's dark and she can't really see much, but then the spirits begin possessing dogs. And as they are thrown from the horse, the possessed dogs start attacking, and no, there is absolutely no way to ignore what is happening at this point. Demon dogs are beginning their assault on Guts, and Guts has to save her repeatedly. And Guts kind of begins to tease her because she observes that this is impossible, and Guts is like, you've never seen a miracle? This is what real miracles are. Ha! He continues his taunting while he's murdering these demon dogs by saying, why shy away at the good part? You're so spiritual, you could at least give me one of those Dear God lines. And I know I'm a broken record, but creature design, the way the dogs, when they're possessed, face twist is haunting. Now, something I won't get too deep into because it's a bit disturbing happens, but it draws a direct parallel to what happened to Casca and makes Guts kind of reach that peak level of rage where he blacks everything out just because of the similarity and the memory being pulled back to him even clearer. And we even see flashes of what happened to Casca occurring in Guts's mind. And the narrative then establishes that Puck, again, still does not know the full context of what makes Guts that angry, but he apparently sees some of the flashes, if I'm reading this right, and that really hooked me for what's to come and how the Puck-Guts relationship is going to develop. We cut through this fight until daybreak, and we see Guts has finally collapsed from exhaustion, and the commander observes, somehow, as he sat beneath the brightening sky, panting like a beast, spattered with the blood of his prey, the image touched me. It was both solemn and beautiful, almost like a painting, adoring a basilica. I merely sought to escape, shivering in fear. Not once could I call upon my Lord, I avow myself a woman of God, but not even the name I've invoked a countless thousand times. I, in the shade of the morning sky, I was tiny, wretched, and powerless. And we know, when people feel powerless, what comes. And this person who espouts all this religious zealotry, of course, is going to be super susceptible to what the evil has to offer. Because a real thing in human psychology, if you devote 1,000% of yourself to something like this, you tend to be very susceptible to manipulation within that to try and get what you think you should be. Instead of working for it, you think you deserve divine path to push you forward. And I want to make it clear, I don't think Berserk or myself here is making fun of or mocking religion as a whole at all. It's instead criticizing people who do away with their own critical thinking abilities and then take all of their desires and align themselves with religion to just get whatever they want, which in my experience is the type of person that your average very good religious person hates the most, because they pollute the waters for other religious people. It's the most hateful that utilize religion to bring themselves above all others, which we've absolutely seen this commander do, and is antithetical to, if you actually read religious texts, what they often preach. But yes, as this commander is feeling so powerless, one last evil spirit comes forward and possesses her, exploiting these fears, also acknowledging the fact that she's human and was attracted to Guts, which she shouldn't feel any shame over, but of course, because of her ideology, she does. And it also kind of takes the fact that apparently she has a bit of a flogging kink, a lot of people do, no kink shaming here, to make her feel even worse. And this is Berserk again, I think, using a rather believable exploit that a spirit like this would latch onto, that these kind of ideologies bring out in people, a constant shame within oneself that can be exploited. But after the possession happens, she comes forward to Guts and tries to assault him sexually, taking his sword and doing something especially gross with it. Puck then removes the spirit though. It's really awkward. Guts has just been assaulted and he says, like, if you're done, get the hell off of me. But we see that that commander from the Holy Knights then shows up at this moment. But the commander, who obviously feels even more shame than she already internalized because of what the possession just made her do, starts trying to order her officer to kill Guts. And he quite intelligently is like, not gonna do that, actually. I saw what he did to a bunch of other people. He's superhuman. I'm a noble's kid. I'm good. And I immediately really start liking this guy even more than I already did. His commander slaps him and walks away. And then Guts and this officer have a bit of a conversation where the officer says, "Again, you have caused her to cry, my commander." And Guts says, "Don't look at me. You just heard the situation. And here I will ask your pardon for now, if you will be willing to overlook things. I still owe you one, you know?" "Yes, well, whatever." Guts walks away. And in that moment, there's a quick draw between the two of them, and Guts whips his sword out, and that guy manages to dodge it, showing he actually does have some pretty notable skill. And he actually draws a little bit of blood on Guts's chin, and we see blood flick away, though Guts's landing was more significant as he has completely severed the man's shoe. That was just kind of like a bit of a measuring contest though, and then they both are like, "Well done. See you later." And I really like this moment from Puck where he observes about the commander, but you know, she seems kind of sad, that Furnessy person. It's like she's bound up on all sides. Guts, showing his limitations of the understanding of what Puck means though, and the situation as a whole, says, "I'm the one who's bound up, moron, but now I've got even more to worry about." To which Puck says, "From dead spirits to priests, what a pain. Speaking of which, we forgot to ask why they're trying to catch you." The last image we get at this moment is the commander avowing that Guts has to die because he saw her shame. And that's where we're going to end this one, and I have a lot to say in terms of, again, me being impressed with this series maintaining momentum with interesting characters post Golden Age. I am starting to crave as a reader, like, okay, let's get to the setup. I want the next big bad, like Thanos equivalent, Griffith equivalent, like let's start moving towards that objective. But it's being entertaining enough in the meantime, while I'm sure we're seeing some elements of it build that I just haven't given enough information to pin down yet, that I'm still having a really good time and enjoying it. This did feel a bit slowed down, which I really was asking for in the last arc, and enjoy, and I'm excited to see what comes next. It's too early for me to give a number on this whole bit. Of course, it could completely fall off or it could be great, but in terms of setting up themes for this arc and themes to have an interesting dynamic between Guts and these religious figures, nailed it. Because Guts is not really caring about religion, but he's obviously, inevitably tied to deeply religious events and characters, but that just doesn't matter to him. And so we're seeing the reflection of that, people who are deeply avowed to this. I don't think maybe even of everyone within the Holy See, as we've seen, is crazy zealot, but I think they have definitely some people in charge who are, but it's more nuanced than that. And like the commander who's second in command, or that one noble seems to have some respect for Guts, there's a balance to it. So it doesn't feel like it's going to be too over the top or just a caricature. And that's Berserk at its peak, right? When it manages to make things feel so down to earth while having this extremely high fantasy setting. I mean, as Guts said, he's met godly beings, and yet this feels way more down to earth than like most fantasy books that don't even leave really Earth. I'm excited for this, and you can expect a big old thickum Berserk video when I get back. And of course, after I catch up with Berserk, I'm gonna need other series to do the same treatment with. I think I've seen the most interest for Chainsaw Man, but there will be a poll that I'll be posting here on the channel, as well as my Twitter and Instagram. The links to it is there for you all to vote on what series gets the same treatment next. Or, if you really want me to, I can start doing 2 of these type of videos a week, and I will just do another series in parallel with Berserk. We'll figure that out soon, but of course, like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you'd like to support what I do here, or see the uncensored versions of these videos, and check out the second channel, The Discussion, where me and my buddy Noah talk about the AFI's 100 greatest films, or some random foreign films, or just other movies that are our favorites. Here's a clip been put up on screen when cocaine was invented.
And also how much cocaine was included in the original Coca-Cola recipe. Thank you.
Maybe a couple people died as a result, because there was a lot of panic.
I do think that a couple people died.
So not cool, Orson Welles. Neat, not cool. There's a very fine line. And of course, I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier Patreons: Adam Allen, Tyler Tarwater, Jujitsu 021, Joseph Lariminer, David Eck, Jalatron, Mike Mullman, Gabraham Lincoln, Oscar Galonzo Rabin, Bogdan Gibbons, I'm trying my best, Goblin Pounder 69, and Anonymous.